Your goal is to speak English fluently, like a native English speaker, right? Well, in order for you to speak English fluently, you must first think in English. And one of the best methods that will help you think in English like a native English speaker is the 5 W's method. Now, I talk about the 5 W's method a lot, but today I am going to break down this method and help you truly understand why the 5 W's method can literally change your English. Are you ready? Well then, I'm Teacher Tiffany. Let's jump right in. Now, let's check out the first part. The first part of the 5 W's method is the who. According to this part of the method, thinking about the individual or individuals connected to a topic or situation will help you speak English more fluently. So let me break it down a little bit more for you. Here's the first and main point. It is easy to remember the individuals connected to a topic or situation. You see, as an English learner, many times when you think about English fluency, you probably think about words and expressions, the number of words you're able to use, right? It happens. Even when I was learning Korean, I thought the same thing. I need to learn tons and tons of words and expressions. Now, that is true. But when it comes to English fluency or speaking a language fluently, it's really about how you break down the information in your mind. And the first part is the individuals. Think about the people that are involved in whatever you're speaking about. Now, it doesn't matter what level you are right now. You can think about the people. Think about the person you ate lunch with yesterday. Immediately, that person's name, that person's face pops up in your head. So the very first part of this method, again, is very simple. Now, the second point is when you think about the people connected to a topic or situation, other thoughts will automatically be triggered because of the emotional connection you have to those people. This is true even if the emotional connection is not strong. For example, let's say you asked me, Teacher Tiffany, can you tell me about your experience in Korea as an English teacher? Immediately, many of my students pop into my head, their faces, and then that leads to the emotional connection I had with my student and still have with many of my students. This is what happens when you start with the first part of the 5 W's method. Think about the individual, immediately an emotion comes up. Maybe that person made you happy. Maybe you had a disagreement and suddenly you feel a little bit frustrated. It's important to first think about the individual or individuals that are involved with the topic you are discussing. Now, the next point is visualizing helps you speak with more confidence. So, when you visualize the people connected to a topic or situation, you will feel more confident to speak for a longer period of time. It's very interesting. Yesterday, I actually had a private class with one of my students. He's a medical doctor and he's currently living in Haiti. And we were talking about his job. And all of a sudden, he mentioned the children he's able to help. And I could tell the emotional connection he had with those children. And he was able to talk even more because suddenly he was thinking about the who, the individuals connected to the topic we were discussing. So this is the very first thing you must remember. You need to speak English fluently, right? You want to sound like me. Well, the first thing you need to do is think about the who, the individuals involved, the individuals connected to whatever topic you are discussing. Now, part 2 is also very important. The second part of the 5 W's method is the what. According to this part of the method, thinking about what actually happened will help you speak English more fluently. Now, again, before I break down this part, I want to emphasize we are focusing on the 5 W's, not the words you're using and not the expressions. But those things will naturally come because now you're feeling more confident to discuss the information connected to the topic instead of just the words or the grammar points. Trust me, this will change your English. So let's go to the breakdown of this part. Now, here's the first thing I want you to remember. This puts emphasis on breaking down the details of a topic or situation. So again, when we're talking about English fluency, we are focusing on how you organize your thoughts. And for the what, part 2, you're focusing on what happened in the situation connected to the topic. For example, if you ask me, hey, Teacher Tiffany, what's your favorite food? Well, the first thing I think about would be, my mom. Let me explain why. What? When I was growing up, my mom enjoyed cooking Mexican food. Now, I love Indian food and Mexican food. But now I'm starting to think about my mom and what she did. She made lots of Mexican dishes when I was growing up. And I can continue explaining what she did, how she made the food. It's very easy for me because there's so many memories that I have. So the what, again, start talking about the details related to the topic you're discussing. Now, point 2 is when you think about what happened, you won't stress as much about the vocabulary words. Instead, you will use the words you already have to try to explain what actually happened. This is so important. Listen. There are tons and tons of words in the English language. There are so many words that no one American, no one native English speaker knows all of the words. However, native English speakers are able to use the words that we do have to express our thoughts and ideas. So, when you, as an English learner, following part 2 of the 5 W's method, when you focus on what happened, and figure out how to use the vocabulary you do have, the expressions you do know, to describe or give details about a situation, all of a sudden you will feel more confident because instead of focusing on a grammar rule or a word or a vocabulary expression, an expression, now your focus is on describing what actually happened. You're trying to paint a picture and the listener will feel more engaged or be more engaged in what you're saying. This is what English fluency is all about. Describing what's happening according to part 2 of the 5 W's method. The third thing is thinking about what happened in a certain situation will help you give the most important details. In other words, the person listening to you will be able to understand your point of view more. I think you're realizing now the importance of thinking in English and using the 5 W's method. We are literally focusing on delivering a message, explaining a situation. Again, the first thing being who was involved. The second thing being what happened. You're painting this picture and the listener is listening intently because your English is good and you can do this. Now, part 3 is also very, very important. The third part of the 5 W's method is the when. According to this part of the method, thinking about when something actually happened will help you speak English more fluently. Let me explain this a little bit more. So again, the breakdown explaining when something happened. This helps you make a comparison with the past, the present, and future of the situation. You see, instead of focusing on the vocabulary words, the expressions, and the grammar rules, you only have 5 things to focus on. And now we're on part 3, the when. So you've described the situation for part 2, the what, and now you're talking about when it happened. Last year. It was last year about around August. You see, you're giving this time period and it's easy for you to remember when something happened because that's not connected to a word you learned or an expression. No stress. It's connected to your experience. And that's how you speak English fluently, describing and explaining when something happened. Now, the second point is by describing when something happened, It will help you clearly express the time period surrounding a specific situation. Remember, when it comes to English fluency, it's all about your ability to describe a certain situation and to help the listener. The listener is the most important thing. Does the listener understand what you are saying? Does the listener understand the time period? What happened? Who was involved? The more the listener understands, the more the listener will feel that you are a fluent English speaker. They'll feel that, wow, your English is really good because they understand, they see, they're able to see visually in their mind what you are talking about. This is what English fluency is all about. Now, the third thing, it also helps you give a clear introduction as you begin giving your opinion or response. Now, with the 5 W's method, it's okay to say things in a different order. The order is not important. However, when you are telling someone when something happened in connection to a topic, you're basically introducing something and laying out the playing field. You're basically setting the stage. Think about a movie. When a movie starts, it lets you know the time period of whatever is happening. It's the same thing with the conversation. When someone asks you a question, they want you to basically tell them a story. Keep them engaged. When did it happen? What happened? Who was involved? You're literally telling a story whenever you're answering a question. So we have part 3 again. When? Explain when something happened. Now, part 4 is just as important. Part 4, the fourth part of the 5 W's method, is the where. According to this part of the method, thinking about where a situation actually occurred will help you speak English with confidence. You're focusing on the location. You can see that in your mind, right? So let's break this down a little bit more to help you understand. So talking about the where, this will help you speak for a longer period of time as you visualize the location. Think about it. Even when you were a child, it doesn't matter what country you're from, even when you were a child, you can remember sitting down, watching a movie, listening to a story, and just suddenly starting to imagine where the story happened. That doesn't change as we get older. We still, just like children, want to visualize, want to see what's happening in our mind as someone is speaking. So, for you to speak English fluently, part 4, explaining where something happened. Think about this image right here, this video happening in the background. You can describe where, they're on this back road and it looks like they're in this small town. I can give you more details and you start to visualize the location. Now, what about this point right here? When you think about where something happened, other memories will flood in or start to come in and help you give a more fluent English response. Now we're getting these triggers. As you speak about the small town, the back road, suddenly other things will pop into your mind and help you speak a little bit longer, giving the right information, right? English fluency is not about speaking for hours and hours. It's really about giving the key information. But when you follow the 5 W's method, it will help you give the key information clearly and easily. So for the fourth part, the where, talking about the location, and you can give a more fluent response. Point 3, visualizing helps you speak with more confidence. So when you visualize where something happened, you will feel more confident to speak for a longer period of time. Earlier, I mentioned, my favorite food. Again, I like Indian food. I love Indian food, but I also love Mexican food. But there's something else that I enjoy. I enjoy banana nut bread. Now, we have 4 W's so far. Who? My mom, once again. What? The first time she made banana nut bread. When? I was about 3 years old. Where? It was in my kitchen. Now, I can continue talking about what happened. Why? Because as soon as I answered each of the W's from the 5 W's method, the 4 right here, I immediately was taken back in my mind to that situation. Leaning against the table, looking at my mom taking the nut bread out of the oven. I was only 3, but I still remember that situation. so I can speak fluently about that situation